So the next session is going to be conducted jointly by two faculty members, Dayadeep Monder and Professor MP Gururajan. Dayadeep Monder is a professor in Department of Energy Science and Engineering. He is MS and PhD from University of Alberta, Canada. His research interests are solid oxide fuel cell modeling at the electrode and cell levels, flow battery modeling, first principles, catalysis and ab initio thermodynamics, and materials for photoelectrochemistry. And Professor MP Gururajan is professor in Department of Metallurgical Engineering and Material Science. He's MSc from Anna University and MSc PhD from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. His research interests are in computational material science, phase transformations, microstructural evolution, thermodynamics and mechanics of materials, and phase field modeling. However, both of them are very passionate about teaching learning process, and they have been experimenting with novel approaches to teaching, particularly after attending previous workshops by Professor Freud. Dayadeep has tried certain things in his course in his department, and also together they have tried to teach a course on data analysis. And so next 1 hour or so, both of them will be sharing their experiences today. So with this brief introduction, I would like to hand over to Dayadeep and Gururajan.
Thanks, Sachin. I'm planning to also share some slides, so if I have permission to share. And in the meanwhile, Dayadeep, you can start with this.
Check whether you are able to share. I think
I can see a share button at the bottom.
Yeah, but you need permission, otherwise it says you cannot.
So then,
yes, now you can share. Yeah.
Go ahead, Guru. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the online teaching, learning, and evaluation experience. So hope you can see. So please call me Guru. This presentation is made into 4 parts, but I'm going to talk about this first. Because that is about the shared course experience, and then Dayadeep will talk about his individual course experience, and then I'll talk about mine, and then before discussion we will try to summarize what we have to say. So first I want to thank Sachin and PPCLT for this invitation, and my co-instructors Hina, Preeta, Dayadeep, and lots of TAs. So as you will see later, it was very useful to get all these inputs. Students and student representatives of classes, because sometimes it is better to get anonymous feedback through student representatives, because they are representing the class, so you don't have to know who said, but what is the feedback that you can get. And in the past couple of years, some past students also got in touch to discuss about issues they are facing and the ways they are trying to overcome some of these issues and so on. Those were very helpful. And colleagues both here on campus and my thesis advisor and a colleague from IIT Delhi. So we have been having discussions on and off about some of these. And like Harish pointed out at the beginning, Professor Iyer shared lots of information, tips, materials, which I have been sharing with others, with my advisor, other students from other places and so on. And I also found a Python-based program for making individualized question papers and mailing them and so on. Professor Kumar Appaya and Professor Mahesh Patil from EE shared it with us, and it was really useful for us when we were conducting exams for the and I have been using this regularly now for other exams and other purposes also. So first I want to thank all of them before we proceed further. So this is just what we did and why. And unlike what Professor Sridhar presented, for example, these are not formally tested. And I'm also raising some questions with no answers. I'm just flagging them here. And like Professor Iyer said, some of this material may not be for public consumption, but I think here we should discuss these issues. And whatever I'm going to say is more as discussion point than as prescription. So please stop me anytime and we can have a chat. You can share your suggestions, experiences, and so on. So this is a short summary of courses that I did online. I was teaching a DD core course by myself when the instruction stopped in the middle. There was a master's elective that I was teaching with Preeta, and we decided that it is not possible to evaluate in that course because it was an elective course and our method of evaluation was very different. And then I taught this undergraduate core course with Hina and Dayadeep. And I taught a master's core course last semester on my own. So all this is based on these few courses that I taught. So I'll first talk about the shared course experience, and I'll flag some issues, and Dayadeep will step in the middle whenever, and then he will talk about it after this. So we decided to share the course between MEMS and energy science, and we had bi-weekly meetings of all instructors, the TAs and us, and it was a really remarkable experience. And we set up quizzes with the understanding that students might look up when they are trying to answer the quizzes, because these quizzes were given that they have to answer over a period of 3 days. They could answer any time. But once they start the quiz, it will end within some 15 minutes, 20 minutes or something like that. So the quizzes were done keeping in mind that they will look up for the answers and answer, but the idea was that in the process that they will look up for the right information and learn what we wanted them to learn. And this was also very useful because I think this is what made students think that we care more about learning than about evaluation. I'll show you some feedback that I received. And I think most of it can be attributed to our not insisting that they have to take it within a time. And even with this 3-day period that we gave for these quizzes, we still took only about 60% or 70% of the quizzes for final evaluation. And in this course, we used R programming. So students have to install R on their computers. And I was surprised that out of 127 students or so of MEMS, about 90 of them had it installed within the first 10 days. And everybody got it installed within the first 15 days. So with 2 weeks into the course, we were taking evaluations with students. So we used to meet them in groups, and then they will open their screen, they will share their screen, and they will show you whatever you ask them to do. Show me the demo of this, or plot this and show. So we used to share the data, and we also used to tell them exactly what we are looking for so that they are prepared for it. And we used to randomize these groups, and we used to randomize the order in which they are called. Once the group is made for the year, the group was the same, but in the order in which they were called is the same, is different. And the person who is talking to them, the instructors who is taking these viva, that is also different. So that way there was some randomization that made them feel that we are not asking the same person to do every time the first thing. So maybe this time you have to answer the question first, but next time you are fifth in the line, and so on. And we also made a conscious decision in these sessions to keep them open. Even though this was like Viva, the other students can be in the room and they can observe what questions we are asking and what the student is answering. This is because the questions were given upfront to all the students. That, for example, this is the data. We are going to ask you to plot the histogram plot. We are going to ask you to plot the box plot, and so on. So then from the data, you can say, okay, take, so for example, if it is some rainfall data, take Bihar and plot the data over this period in this format, and so on. So the information as to exactly what we are going to evaluate was given upfront, and because of which the other students can be there. There is no secrecy about the questions. Everybody knew the questions. And I felt that, or we felt that with our discussions, we realized that students being there when the session happens and they see somebody else doing it, that is also a very good way of learning for students. And of course, from this point of view, the first student who has to face the question has a little bit of a disadvantage. Even though questions are known, they still have to do it for the first time. But the way we overcame this is by randomizing. Maybe this session you have to do first, but next session you are not doing first. So this, I think, is another one which was quite successful, and it also gave us this feedback whether students understand, they are able to interpret, they are able to do what is expected of them, and so on. And like I said, we had randomized unique question papers for the final exam, and that worked really well. And it helped avoid many issues of proctoring. There was a little bit of proctoring. It is not like exam was conducted without proctoring, but it still made life much easier for us. We made unique question papers. We encrypted them. We sent the encrypted passwords one day in advance. And on the day of exam, 5 minutes before the exam, the question papers went online so that they could download and unencrypt. And so the question paper had their roll number as the name, and so it was meant for that particular student. So and they already had the password, so that way they could download only their question paper and de-encrypt and see. And the question paper had enough questions to engage them for that period when they are supposed to answer. So this was really possible only because of automating the process of making question papers. And having said that, at the end, we still felt that the more tutorials and interaction would have helped. But overall, the feedback from the students were very positive. So some said the course is very interesting, some said great course, and they said that we cared about their difficulties, and some said that this is the best course. Of course, this is the second year first semester kids, so they have done only 1 year of courses at IIT. This is their second year, 6 months, but they still felt that it is the best course, and they had fun, and our instruction was good, and that we understood the difficulties they went through. They went to the extent of writing, we love you, and things like that. And somebody said it is the best, and they are even betting that it will be the best course, and so on. So overall, the feedback was very positive. Of course, this is very small number of feedback compared to the number of students we had. And this is the feedback that I got. Of course, Dayadeep and Hina would have got feedback of this type. But even having said all that, it is still less than 10% of the class which is giving you the feedback in the feedback form. This is the formal feedback. Informally also, we heard that students like this course. So that is the feedback. At this point, Dayadeep, should I go ahead or you want to pitch in? Because now I'm going to talk about the speed breakers on the way. So
yeah, no, before that, yeah. What Guru did not mention by saying that, okay, this was, we decided to do it in collaboration. It was essentially me going up to them and saying, please, can I jump into your wagon? And them very graciously agreeing to share all the course content, because I'll go back a little bit to talk about where I was, let's say about a month before the term was supposed to start. I realized, okay, everybody knew, okay, this semester is going to be completely online. So we have to prepare course material. Now, I had taught this course before. I taught it twice in the face-to-face mode. Right? So this was my third time teaching it, but this time it was going to be all online. And I wanted to experiment with the flipped mode. And there I thought, okay, now if I have to do it in the flip mode, that means I have to record all the lectures, right? And then that became very overwhelming. Then I thought, okay, and I had also heard a couple of, there was a workshop that was held last year And in that, I'd heard Sridhar say explicitly that, what's the word? Curating material that is already available is a great idea if you're doing an online course. And so that's what I was looking at. I was trying to now go through a bunch of material, and there's a lot of material for introductory statistics and probability courses. And I ran across Guru and Hina's course on NPTEL. And that's when I called them and said, okay, can I use your material? They said, yeah, of course, why not? And by the way, we're going to do the same course essentially. So as most of you would know, the data analysis and interpretation course is something that is taught by most departments, most engineering departments anyway, in the second year. There's some history to it. It used to be taught by the math people, and at some point they handed it over to the departments. So each department teaches it, and it's essentially the same curriculum. It's essentially the same course content for everybody. So Guru said, Hina and I are teaching this course this time around. And that's when I came out and said, look, I've been looking for curated, for content that I would curate and say, okay, watch this lecture, then we'll do a Q&A or a tutorial around it. Would it be possible for me to just join you guys and use all of your material? And they didn't even hesitate for a second. I mean, they said, yeah, please, welcome. So that's the history to it. And then, of course, towards the end of the course, I tried to contribute some material, very small fraction. But for the most part, I used the lectures that they were recording, and we were delivering those in the flipped mode. As Guru has already said, we were doing the tutorials in our every second week. So alternate weeks were tutorial weeks, where each student would get 5 to 10 minutes individual attention from one of the TAs, where they would ask them to do things that they had already been told that, okay, this is what you would be expected to do. So just the act of following along and watching the output and interpreting the output on your screen, that's what we wanted them to do. And we gave them a little bit of credit for each such session. And based on how they did, we graded those. So, it counts both as formative as well as summative. But primary job is formative assessment, which is the job is to help them learn. It's not to grade them. The grading component is tiny. Is just give them a little bit of a carrot to follow. So that was great. And I ended up learning R through that experience. As Guru said, we would meet every 2 weeks and discuss, okay, how is it going? What do we do next? Are there any course corrections? And I think Guru is going to talk about this next. About 1/3 into the course, or even earlier, maybe 1/4 into the course, we got feedback from the students that they're getting overwhelmed. It's just too much material, too many courses, everything is online. They're just overwhelmed and shutting down. So then we brainstormed, we reached out to people, we reached out to Shahana specifically, and she gave us some good advice. Guru will share that soon. So, I wanted to bring in my perspective here, and we'll take questions, of course, through the rest of this session. But it's a mode which I think, or this mode in which we delivered the course. I think it's a great model. I think it's a very good model. And from my discussions with both of them, they have liked it as well. Although they were the primary content creators and structure creators as well. So we can discuss this in a group later on. I think it's a great model for people who are starting out teaching. The only The only thing that teachers starting out have to get over is the hesitation to admit that, look, this is really difficult for me, I need help. Right? And I think we should have the trust in our colleagues to be able to reach out. And in this case, I reached out to people who are in a different department altogether. I knew they were friendly people, so that helps, of course. But what I'm suggesting is that this is a replicable model. Yeah. Yeah, I'll share a little bit of the feedback for this course a little later on that I have. But go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Dayadeep. So let me go ahead. So till this point, everything looks great, but this doesn't tell the full story. So I want to raise at least 3 or 4 different flags. I think on these, I don't have answers. I just want to flag them so that I can hear your suggestions, your viewpoints, and all of us collectively also think about some of these issues because they are of great importance. The first speed breaker is, of course, what Dayadeep said. We had to reach out to Sahana. I'm quoting my mail so that it will give you a clear idea of what we heard at that point and what we were trying to do. Even though most of the comments, as far as I know, because I remember at that time asking Dayadeep, but I think energy science students were coping up fairly well. There was not too much complaint from them. But MEMS, through TAs, through direct interaction, and through anonymous feedback, we started hearing that the course is becoming overwhelming. And the action we took based on that is also one of the reasons why students keep telling in the feedback that we listened to them, because they gave a feedback and we acted on it. And so I described what we are trying to do. And I also said that we have slowed down the course delivery a bit. When we received that feedback, we stopped posting material and started to ease down a bit. And we arranged daily office hours, even though not many students showed up. In fact, one office hour, I remember nobody showed up. So we were just there. Me and Dayadeep were chatting for a while. But I think that we took an action. Whether they finally used it or not mattered a lot to them. But this question remains that they have so many courses to take care of, and how do they handle the course, and especially when there is no human contact. Like I said, if your orb installation is acting up, if you really don't have a way of fixing it, it can be quite frustrating for you, right? So that is the kind of issues that the students face. And we asked Sana for any suggestions she might have, and we even offered that we will share all the material we have so that she can look up and give us answers. Of course, she wrote a very long mail. It is worthy of quoting in full, but it is too long for quoting here. And some of the things you have also heard from Sridhar in the previous session, some of the suggestions. And I will anyway take permission from Sana and share it with Sachin and Dr. Mrinal, so that some of you who want to have a look at it can have access to it. But one of the key takeaways was to decide that we are going to reduce the course content a little bit, and instead increase the hands-on sessions a little bit more. And the hands-on sessions had this personalized delivery, in the sense that we were talking to individual students, asking them, okay, show me whether you can do this, and so on. I think that also created a good improvement. But if suppose somebody says, no, this is a core course and all this delivery has to happen, because that is the official stand that is going to be in many formal occasions I have seen. Nobody is formally agreeing that, this is an online semester, so let us bring down the material a little bit. Even though, I mean, for example, school CBSE is removing certain chapters and so on, but the questions always remain. I mean, The curriculum, it is there because it is important, and now how do we say that it is not and we are going to remove it and still allow students to do? So that is the first issue that we faced. The second issue that we faced, again, I mean, I don't know if Sachin is planning or he has already brought in this viewpoint or had some discussion on this. Before final examination, we received a mail that the procedure has to be vetted if it is not in the standard proposed format. And when I wrote the format of the final exam we were planning to have, which was this individualized question paper, etc., there were objections and there were several email exchanges. And in my mind, at least, it was not finally formally resolved. Because there was this mail that, we have concern about this process of yours and that process of yours. I did reply, but it was not finally told to me that it is okay. And when I had informal discussion with a couple of colleagues, they said, yeah, you can go ahead and do it, but you still have the risk of having to answer or give an explanation if something goes wrong and some student complains. So in the regular semester, it is very clear that most of us have what kind of freedom and how we evaluate, etc. Because prior to that, it was told that you have to announce in the first lecture what your evaluation scheme is. As long as you stick to it, it is no problem. But in this semester, there were several things which did not allow us to do. In fact, the instruction initially was to keep a large amount of marks for the final exam because there was a move to conduct all over the country some exam centers and final exam in person and so on. And later it was changed, and then it became online proctoring, and then it became proctoring with more than one device. Then there were instructions like you have to ask the student to take the camera, show around the room and things like that. So this was the sort of procedure, the time when we received, when we decided that we will not do some of these things, but we will do the exam this way, and that is when we got into. So I understand from the institutional point of view that if some students are complaining that there is large-scale copying, or some students are complaining that some instructors are not paying attention, or things like that, they do have to take action. But because this is the first time such a thing is happening, and because the formal mechanisms were not in place, and whatever we tried to do was within the Senate decision, so that is also true. And I also received from the Dean Academic, for example, yes, what you are proposing is within the agreed norms of what Senate decided, so you can go ahead. And in spite of it, there were these issues that were finally not fully resolved. And I understand that if you're a first-time instructor, it can be an issue also. I mean, I kept writing, insisting or giving explanation of how we are doing and why it is okay and so on. But if you're a first-time instructor and if you start receiving such mails, how do you respond, or how do you think about these things? So this is another issue. I think I'm just raising this flag here because I think we have to seriously think about and put mechanisms in place. What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? It is also possible that some instructors wanted such instructions from the administration. You just tell what is acceptable exam, we will conduct according to those norms. But does everybody want to do that? And how much leeway you have and things like that? Either as a norm or as a set procedure, both were not available. So this is the second one that I want to raise. And the third one, of course, is at the grading time, we did have differences of opinion. But what is not clear is, for example, I don't know how many of you co-teach courses, whether you decide on grading strategies at the beginning. And I know that if it is a semester where first lecture we have to tell grading strategies, we do say. And at that time, do you discuss the philosophy of your teaching philosophy or evaluation philosophy? And what happens if there is difference of opinion? Like some instructors feel that I'm not a, like Sridhar said, I'm not here to police, so I give this and I'm done with. And some say, no, no, we have to strictly follow whatever is the norm, whatever we are being told, and this is how it should be done. And when it comes to grading also, I mean, there is always this concern that no, students are just complaining, so we have to be very strict. Or no, this semester has been bad, and it is especially bad for those who have some difficulties from their socioeconomic background, let us say. They're not having good internet connectivity. They are not in a place where good electrical connectivity is possible. So these kind of issues, I mean, do you take that into consideration, or do you say that is not my problem? I'm here just to do my job. So all these can be there. And I don't think, even though we have done several of these courses about teaching, etc., these kind of administrative aspects of teaching courses is discussed that heavily. I know that tomorrow's professor sometimes used to send out mails, and I used to enjoy. Unfortunately, that mailing list stopped recently. There, sometimes some of these issues do get discussion. And I have bought some books based on their recommendation, and some of those books have some information. But even in all the discussion we had about teaching that I can remember, these things were not explicitly discussed in any of those. And I think it is worth thinking about these things. So to summarize, I mean, the issues I want to flag or highlight, again, I don't have clear final answers. I did realize that some of the feeling of overwhelmedness that students felt was my own stupidity. This could be one of the reasons why energy science students did not feel this, but our students felt. I was using the Moodle formatting, the weekly format, and every week there were some 10 things that were getting posted. And I think just looking at the Moodle page made it very difficult for students. I mean, it was very stressful. I realized this, and students, the TAs also pointed out this to us. And now, for example, the last semester and this semester, my formatting is different. So I have now split it into lecture material, assignments, and but Dayadeep had it from the beginning. So some of it could be, I mean, simply the human-computer interaction or the interface problem. Like I generally prefer week-wise to just go finish, even when I do edX courses or Coursera courses. But I realize that that might not be the best way for everybody, and probably it is better to give some sort of arrangement which makes the students feel more comfortable about what you're doing.
So essentially a tree structure, right? You
It's
give it a tree structure, and it makes it look a little more handleable. So
right.
as you said, I mean, most of it is an optics problem. I have 11 items to finish, as opposed to these are categorized into 3 things. Okay, fine.
Yeah. So I think there might be ways, I mean, avoiding such things which will not give them this feeling, but it is still possible. Even after that, it is possible, because I'm going to show you another example next, where students did feel overwhelmed even after my making this correction. But at least not because of this, students were feeling overwhelmed. That much we could avoid. Even though I have not faced it personally, I know of student demands from instructors that give us a question bank and ask questions from only that bank, or grade us liberally, or do not fail anybody, and things like that. So what is not clear to me is that when does this stops being a feedback? Students told me that they were getting overwhelmed. Of course, that was a feedback, and it was very useful one, and we could act on it, and we could think about it. But when does something starts becoming a feedback and becomes an unreasonable demand is something that I don't know. Again, I'm going to leave it open. And if you have differences of opinion or philosophy with your course instructors, co-instructors, how do you resolve it, or how do you handle it? What are the things that you should discuss upfront, are things that are not clear to me. And the other one is administration. How much of say they will have in what you want to say, and how, and so on. So that is another thing that we need to discuss about, and that becomes very important. So in some scenarios, so I am going to how to set up systems in place so that things move smoothly. that we also have a mechanism of hearing the feedback that the administrators are getting about the course evaluation, etc. Formally, is there a way to discuss this? Those things. And I don't know if, for example, such the feedback when it came, whether education technology or PPC CLT was involved looking at the issues and giving broad-based feedback. So these are things that I want to flag and highlight. So I think that is all I had for this. So I'll give it over to Dayadeep. Dayadeep, if they have any questions or discussion, we can also do that before we move on to our individual course things.
Yeah.
And if you have to add anything, please feel free.
No, I think you've covered everything. I just wanted to go back to something I had brought up earlier when I talked about my own, decision to talk to you guys and just to ask you what was possible, and you said, do just jump in, just join, do whatever we are doing, just share everything that we have already built. I want to emphasize this, especially for people, and I'm not a first-time teacher. I mean, I've been teaching for many years now. And even then, I was overwhelmed. So, what I wanted to say again, reiterate, is that this sort of collaborative model is a good one. And I think, of course, I've been talking about what I learned, but I think even the discussions we had, the decisions that we took, they ended up improving both courses. They ended up improving how much these students learned, or what their experience was of the learning. So, either way you look at it, it's a win-win. If you can set it up. And of course, this semester, it's probably too late to set up something like this for your course. But you can start thinking about next semester or the semester after that, or wherever you have a course where you, at this point in time, feel overwhelmed, but you know that other people have done this course, or they are doing this course, perhaps in a different department. And you want to explore a collaborative model. We are here to tell you that yes, it can be done, and it can be a pleasurable experience. It can be a learning experience.
Yeah, from a purely academic point of view also, I think this should be done, because I still feel that all the students sitting together and learning this course from math department would have been probably the ideal one. But of course, I don't know the reasons why it was given up. One reason could be that, department specific examples are not showing up, even though we made a conscious decision that we will not give examples only from metallurgy materials in the course, because I still wanted them to realize that probability of statistics is, irrespective of where you go. But having said that, having different instructors from different departments, bringing in even a little bit of that flavor, I personally feel that 3-4 departments should come together and run this course together for their students, and those groups also can be dynamic. This year it could be 4.
You can mix people.
Yeah. So I think that way also I feel that I was very happy that you were open to come and join and do. But more of that, I would be happy. Like you said, it was a very pleasant experience for us and learning experience. In addition, I think students also benefited and realized that. Harish, I think has questions.
Yeah, I mean, if you can take a question now, or maybe at the end.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, thank you both of you for sharing your experience. I think this is really inspiring. Actually, I think it's a great idea to join forces. Like I have a couple of questions. First one is on your first speed breaker. So I think at this we are hearing multiple times, and I think we also acknowledge it. They have a lot of screen time, many courses. Everyone wants feedback, active interaction. So everybody wants to also have more quizzes, more assignment, all of that. So in your case, when this came, and you also talked to Sahana, I think you wrote. So what did you do? Because you said that it's a core course and you wanted that at least a minimum they need to learn. But at the same time, they are saying that it is overwhelming.
Yeah.
So what was eventually done?
So we actually cut portion. We said ANOVA we are not going to do. If they know how to do regression and hypothesis testing properly, ANOVA is easy to pick.
Okay.
So I pointed out to some R tutorial or ANOVA and said you can do. So that is almost like some 1 week or more than 1 week worth course material that we said remove.
Okay.
And then we also started emphasizing the same material in the R programming also, so that it is not like they are getting something completely new.
Sure.
They know that, okay, I have done hypothesis testing and it is the same thing here. So it's only some command I have to. So I think just being conscious that they are feeling overwhelmed helped us a lot. And one of the suggestions that Sahana gave is to cut down portion. And that is what Sridhar also started, teach in a more deeper fashion than more material. That is what we took. But, officially, formally, the administration is never going to say that cut material, but this is what we did.
Right. Okay, great. Just one additional question, which is coming to your last, I think, speed breaker, which is about grading. So you have energy and the MSME students. Did you do separate grading from them, or you did grading together for all the students?
No, sort of we did separate. We did put all the numbers together and we looked at it.
Okay.
And then when we decided to give how many AAs, etc., we did it separately. Okay. Like Dayadeep said, I mean, we would have loved, or we should have promoted more interaction between the two groups, even though it was there and we shared at our level. I think at student level, we did not make conscious effort to make them interact with each other. But if we ever do it again, I mean, that is going to be my other project to experiment with it and see how it works out.
Sure.
But grading we did finally. But I am saying that even there, within our own grading, there could be differences of opinion.
Right.
How many AAs you give, and is it really acceptable? I gave more liberally than what I would give. And my co-instructor did not feel that is justified. Finally, we are seeing numbers. We should go by numbers. We have taught this course the entire semester, and now.
Sure.
Hard question. I really don't have an answer, even though I did what I thought was the right thing to do from my point of view, because it goes well with my philosophy and my way of thinking. But I'm not saying the other instructor is not correct. I mean, she is equally valid in her criticism. And so it's very difficult to know how to deal with it. So
right. Just because this is I think also very relevant for me, I think many others. You said that you moved away from the final exam pattern, something like that.
Yeah.
So, and also I understand you said that got approval from Dean AP or something. So is it like you communicated that
at that time there was a mail which said that if you do any other format, you have to get it approved.
Right.
So I sent a mail, and the Dean replied saying that okay, it is well within the Senate norms, so you can go ahead. But then there were some questions. It's still from the administration. So there were a series of email exchanges between me and the administration. I tried to explain, and so I said unique individual question paper. They wanted to know how uniformity will be ensured, for example.
Right.
So I mean, these are valid concerns, but I'm saying that is that the right way? I mean, should we have these discussed upfront now that we have had experience?
Right. But I mean, one of the takeaways for me is in any of these cases, anyway, involved the administration. I mean, at least if they are involved, then we don't have at least these kind of problems.
See, for example, even in these workshops, I don't know if Sachin has planned to bring some of them and make them talk from the point of view of administration. I mean, what are the issues they faced? What are the complaints they got? How we should go about, talking about those issues and come up with evidence-based solutions, right? We have the education technology cell, we have PPCCLT. They should look at these problems and give common broad guidelines to faculty members.
Agree.
That is the reason why I raised it here. So I thought it is the right forum to talk
So
about.
maybe let me chip in since
Thank
you
you.
have raised it.
Yeah.
So let me this Sridhar. So let me give my some two bits on the two of the speed breakers that you mentioned. So the first one, about the material. See, one way is to make the material into these learning optional learning, or so in our model we call them as learning extensions, but we can make them into this optional learning where the modules are made available. See, the administration will have a problem if you don't create the module. So you create some learning material and leave it optional for students to those who have the resources and who are able to look at it, and their situation permits, they can look at it, and those who don't look at it don't look at it. So that is perhaps one workaround for the cutting the portion problem, and keeping, and also at the same time keeping it within the administration's thing. And for the second one, about this exam pattern and so on. See, I have always felt, one thing we have to keep in mind is, what is our role? Our role is not to follow the rule. Our role is to ensure that students learn. And that is best left to the instructor. And sure, there will be some people who will exploit the flexibility and, reduce their own work and, kind of cut corners. But we don't want to design systems to cater to exceptions. We want to design systems that facilitate the average motivated enthusiastic instructor from executing their work without any hassles. So again, here what I have found is that it is better to, I'm going out on a limb saying this here, but it's better to give an explanation rather than to ask for permission. I'll stop with that.
Any other questions? Okay. If not, Dayadeep, you want to talk about your other, because we have, I think, 10 minutes left. So.
Right. Yeah. So I just wanted to maybe, let me see if I can share my screen.
I'll stop sharing.
Yeah. So you should be seeing a whiteboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So just stepping back, this is teaching it's actually fun. It's a lot of fun, but it's always also really hard, and I think all of us acknowledge that. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, please reach out. We have the resources at this institute. We have the resources. We have the people who will share their experiences, will give you good guidance, and so on. And a message which I've learned myself through the various courses I have given, and teaching workshops, pedagogy workshops by many people. It's not about the material. It's not about our teaching. It's about how much the students absorb. Right? That's it. It's very simple, really. It's about their learning. So that's what we want to focus on. And I have used some learning methods, and I think several of these, and you would have heard Shahana talk about them, you would have heard Sridhar talk about it, and I know Guru mentioned a few of these. So the ones that have worked for me, and I have some experience with them, is what's usually called the minute paper. Right. This is, I think I was overhearing what Sridhar was saying, that in maybe towards the end of your class, you put up a questionnaire where you ask them to tell you, okay, which of the concepts that you covered in class, which of them are clear and which of them are muddy. And this is not something that you need to share with the rest of the class, but it's feedback that you can then use in your next lecture or your next set of lectures to focus on something that people have already told you, the students have told you that they did not get a few of the concepts, so you can guide them through those. So it's an incredibly helpful tool, and it's very easy to set up, online as well as offline. And you can do it anonymously. You should do it anonymously, just because people are hesitant when their name goes on there. The other one is the think, pair, share. And this is something that in the online mode, I haven't yet quite implemented it. But I want to do it this semester. So the automated breakout rooms in the various tools that we use enable this. You ask a question, and you tell the students, okay, to respond to this question, if possible, and the tools are there. You show them, okay, this is the distribution of answers we got. So many people said yes, so many people said no. And then you say, okay, now go away for another 2 minutes, and you will be either in a group of 2 or a group of 3. Larger groups may be problematic, but smaller groups are better here. And discuss this question again. And the key thing we are looking for is that the 2 of you or the 3 of you have to converge on one answer. So, discuss it, come up with a consistent understanding and a consistent answer, and then we will redo then you again, answer the same question individually. And you look at whether now is the class converging to what is the correct answer. If they're still not converging to the correct answer, then it's time for you as an instructor to step in and say, explain the problem and walk them through the solution. So this is a very, very good interactive and active learning method. A third one which I have tried, I have not tried online, but I have tried it in face-to-face mode, is called Jigsaw. And that's a little more complicated. Here, let's say, there are 36 students. So we make 6 groups of 6. And these groups are whatever, A, B, C, D, E, F. And you have 6 concepts that you want everybody to know. Yep. So you assign the first concept to A, second concept to B, third concept to C, and so on and so forth. You give them I don't know, 2 days. Okay, here is the material where this concept is presented. This is the section in the textbook you will have to read up. Within the group, everybody has to know and understand this concept. Okay, so everybody in A, concept 1, everybody has to be clear, and you work together. You're actually actively encouraged to work together, help each other understand. And then in the next class, you say, okay, A1, you are now in charge of teaching this to B1, C1, D1, E1, F1. Okay, now across the groups, you make the second iteration of a group of 6. Now these are all the ones together. Okay, you're teaching concept 1 to A, B, C, D, E. You are A, you teach it to the other 5. And so on and so forth. So concept 2, B2 is going to teach to A2, C2, D2, and so on and so forth. So the idea here is peer learning. You're forcing them to teach each other. And as we know, and you would have seen this in all the pedagogy workshops that you've attended, is that you really don't, and when you teach, of course, that you really don't understand material until you are forced to teach it. So you get the students to teach each other. I got great feedback. The first time I taught it for this very course, the data analysis and interpretation course, and I taught it for the random variable distributions. So probability distributions for, a uniform, normal distribution, exponential distribution, and so on and so forth. I had 6 of them, and I got 6 groups together, and I got them to do this exercise over 2, I think maybe even 3 lectures. And they enjoyed it. I mean, nobody complained. They actually came back in the feedback saying that, yes, this was a great idea. We enjoyed it. So there are, these are the 3 things that I have tried, and I know that they work. So I'll stop here. Yeah, back to you, Guru.
Yeah, thanks, Dayadeep. I think, as usual, I have more material than I should. So I'm going to only talk about the way I replaced the final exam with a term paper in the other course, master's core course that I taught. And even though it was in lieu of the final exam, it was still evaluated continuously. And the way I did is to allot term papers. The topics were allotted randomly, and they were asked to first submit the resources, what papers or books they are going to read, and then give a draft outline, then give a revised outline, then give a 1-page model draft, then 2 to 3 pages of model draft, and a bibliography, and the draft and final submission. And the brackets tell you how many marks. So it is 8 activities, 5 marks on the average, but somewhere 3 to 4 in the beginning, and then it became 5 and 7 and 8 towards the end. And so we replaced a final exam for 40 marks with this exercise. And I did get some good feedback that it is useful for them. But the grading they did not like, because continuously now you have to keep on working, and everything like resources, if they give, then I gave a feedback. I said, no, this paper is not okay, or look up for this information and add it to your draft outline, how you have modified your resources and so on. So that became a little bit overwhelming. In this course, of course, I also found difficulties because this is more math and numerical oriented course. It's a diffusion and kinetics course. So I had to teach them how to solve the PDEs of diffusion and how to get numerical solution and so on. They found it overwhelming. It is also because of the composition of the MTech program in our department. These are students from different disciplines, not just materials, metallurgy students. So there was lots of feedback. I mean, I also put those feedback just to indicate that, sometimes it's really difficult for students, and they do tell you that. But I don't think we have the time to discuss all the detail. But so I will stop here, and I will summarize. Overall, past 2 years, it was really enjoyable, the interaction with co-instructors and experience of setting up these evaluation strategies, and trying to cover at least the key ingredients, and make sure that they become independent enough to figure out the rest. And I think generally the students who are sincerely working are working harder than they would have been for the same outcome. Loading R is an example. I mean, in the regular semester, they would have come with the TA, they would have sat down in 10 minutes, they all would have got the R on their computers, for example. But they may be better for it, but during the course, it is stressful for them. I think we have to be mindful of that. That is one takeaway from this experience for me. But some things which I am forced to do now because of online classes, I will continue to do them. And I especially found this term paper and continuous evaluation to be one of the best things that I have figured out now. So most probably, even if the students come back in person, I'm going to continue. And there are many such things that I have realized that it's better to do even in the regular semester. I think that will be very useful and more effective in terms of delivery. So with that, I want to really thank you for your patience, attention, and interaction. So I'm going to stop here. Thanks.